Hi, this is Shay with Truxas Sales, here today doing a PTO and pump troubleshooting video, as well as explaining some of the different pump and PTO systems that are available for dump trucks. So I'm going to go through, talk about a bunch of the components here, show you some of the parts on them and the functions, and then we'll jump under a couple trucks here and show a couple of these things hooked up as well. So first thing here on the left, we have PTO. This is a Muncie PTO system for an Eaton Fuller transmission, probably the most common that you will find. What the PTO stands for is power takeoff. So this takes power from the transmission through these gears right here and transfers it through a drive shaft to the pump, which is right there. We actually got a couple different pumps. We'll talk about that in a minute. So first thing, as far as troubleshooting your PTO, it has to be aired up. You have to have at least 70 pounds in your air system in order for this to turn on. So it's a common thing, hey, my PTO isn't turning on. It could be because your air pressure is not up. And the air pressure, typically the PTO systems are hooked up to your secondary air system. So your secondary air system would need to be above 70 psi for the PTO to be engaged. And basically this plate here goes on the other side, air goes in here, and it switches the gear over to engage the PTO system. And so this covers right on there. Air lines going in, sensor, the light turns on, tells you that the switch is switched. So sometimes the light won't come on when the air pressure is not up enough. So there's a PTO. There's a bunch of different PTO setups for different transmissions, especially automatic transmissions. But for the most part, these PTOs are pretty bulletproof. They're very hard to damage, last a really long time. We've had very little problems with these PTOs. One thing, when you turn the PTO on and you're hearing a grinding of the gears, it could be one of two problems. It could be too tight, where the gears are smashed together and it's creating a noise, or the gears can be too loose and the gears are skipping on top of each other. So that would be something that you could hear inside of the cab. So there's different gaskets that you put on here to get the correct meshing of the gears. The gears need to be lined up just right, or else they could be too loose or too tight, and you will hear it if it's too loose or too tight. So if you're getting a humming noise when you turn on the PTO, that could definitely be an issue, especially with the gear grinding. When you turn on the PTO, you want to push the clutch in, turn the PTO on, and let the clutch out slowly. If you don't have the clutch in, it could also be grinding the gears. So that's another thing. You got to have the clutch in. Your clutch has to be functioning, has to put the transmission into neutral. Then you want to let the clutch out slowly. You don't want to snap the clutch out and have these gears yanked into spinning. So, but when you shut the PTO off, you do not need to push in the clutch. You can just flip the air switch off and you can shut the PTO off at any time. Normally, as soon as you're done lifting the bed, it's a good habit to be in to just shut the PTO off immediately. So, so that's pretty much a PTO. A little bit of troubleshooting on that. We'll jump over here to the pumps. Now these pumps, on the other hand, as you see, we got three of them. We've got a Materis, we have a Bonito, and we have a Hydrostar pump. There's actually two other ones that we've bought as well, and you can see they're all basically identical. I don't know if there's a difference between the rubber bushing quality in each of these, but unfortunately with these pumps, we probably have 1 in 20 of them right out of the box not functioning, and maybe 1 in 40 of them we are delivering to somebody and it's breaking down during the first 6 months of operation of the pump. So it's not all of them, but it is a problem with these particular pumps. There are different ways to set this up. We'll talk about that here in a minute. that can make it more reliable. But for the most part, if you can see all these pumps, they literally look like they came out of the exact same factory. I mean, really, go ahead and take a look at the tops of those. I mean, it is just basically the exact same pump there. So, I mean, you can't really tell the difference. I mean, the casting, everything looks like it happened all at the same factory. So this pump here, we got a few things already on it. So you can see some of the things that can occur with that. One other thing before we go on, this is actually the pump and this is the tipping valve. So it is possible to get these things separated, have a pump motor and then have the tipping valve separate, but then you need more hydraulic lines to then connect the tipping valve to the pump. Sometimes on pup trailers, stuff like that, you'll have the tipping valve separate. This one right here, all of these right here are mechanical pumps. So they have it set up right here for a cable. This is probably, you know, the most common setup cable. There's also air powered. This is the cable that ends up connecting to the pump like that. There's some other components we'll take a look at when we jump under the trucks that you can see that connect that. Basically, pull the knob and you can see it's pulling the shaft in and out there. So this is what's referred to as mechanical controls for the pump. There's also air controls, and there would be an air valve right there. So we're going to jump under a truck with air controls here, and you will take a look at that as well. But there's basically an air solenoid on there, and two air lines go in there, and it basically is putting this valve here in and out. So that's dumping the truck, that's lowering the bed. That's actually the holding position right there, and that's lowering the bed. So we have all the way up, bed's going up, holding position. That's how you want to drive around when you're driving down the street. You want the pump in the holding position. Otherwise, if it's in the loose position where the fluid can flow through, sometimes your bed, when it's empty, it can bounce on your frame. So you want to keep it in the holding position. So one of the problems that can occur with this is, let's say your pump is working really slow. Your bed's going up slow. That could be because the cable isn't adjusted properly and this valve isn't open completely. It's only opened a crack. So the adjustment of the cable is important. Same thing when you're letting it down. Maybe your bed's going down really slow. That's because it's not completely closing the valve and letting all the fluid flow through. It could be open just a crack, and it's going to make it slower. These are the bigger size pumps. This is really all you will need for even an end dump or dump truck with a 20-foot bed or more. These pumps are decently quick, decently powerful. There is smaller versions of these. We don't install a smaller version pump on any of the dump trucks we run. It just ends up being too slow. We're assuming that being smaller, it could also be less durable as well. So this is pretty much our standard size here that we are using. Right now we're using the Materis pumps, but as you can see, they're really all interchangeable. These pumps do come with a 1-year warranty, so what we would need is the pump. We'll mail you a new pump, and then we need this pump mailed back to us in order to fulfill a warranty claim. And a lot of the times, if you go somewhere, they have this pump in stock. You know, at some of the mechanic shops that we work with, they'll just grab one off the shelf, put it on your truck, and we will mail them another pump, because as you can see, it doesn't matter which brand you have, they're basically the exact same thing. And we actually keep these in stock and have them on our parts website for a really reasonable price on these pumps. As far as these PTOs go, those are prices more average, you know, but if you did need a PTO, we could send that to you as well. But these pumps we keep in stock on the shelf. We can get them out the door real quick if you needed one. So back to the troubleshooting on this thing. So as you can see with the mechanical one, it needs to be an adjustment, and if you can see, there's a couple cotter pins here that hold this thing together, and you'll see when we're under the truck, there's even some more nuts and bolts that need to go on there in order to get this cable hooked up. So if these cotter pins come out of there, this pin can fall out. So that's one thing to check. You know, make sure these 2 pins are in there, and make sure the cable is connected. As far as this other thing, this is kind of unique to the way we install them. This valve here, this is basically a bed up indicator light sensor. So this detects pressure in the system and turns the light on in the dash. Some states require you by law to have a bed up indicator light on your truck, and that's what we do it. We found this to be a better way than having some electrical little switch that when the bed comes down it rests on it. We've just had more problems with those, where this system hasn't been as many problems. This is a common sensor you can get at any auto parts store. It's actually for it's a brake sensor, so for a car, and that's what completes the circuit and turns the light on. So if your PTO is working in good working condition and it's not grinding when you turn it on, and your bed is still not going up, you likely have a problem with your pump. Normally when you're in the cab of the truck, you can hear the PTO come on. This is one of the PTO switches right here. This is an air-powered switch, as you can see in the dash. Normally if this is having a problem, you'll hear it in your dash leaking. So if you're hearing air coming from your dash, that could be a problem. The air might not be getting transferred through the switch to the PTO. But if the PTO is working properly, you're turning it on, you can hear it coming on, you're pulling the cable or flipping the valve if you have an air-powered one and the bed is not going up, there could be a problem with the pump. So assuming all of the things are connected properly, there's a couple things that can happen with these pumps. One of the more common things that happens that can cause a pump to malfunction is overheating the pump. So with these dump truck systems, most of them are set up as a one-way valve. So the hydraulic oil comes in and goes out, and then when you put the bed down, it cycles back through the pump. So unless the bed is going up or down, there is no fluid going through the pump, so it can overheat in about 1 minute to 2 minutes of leaving your PTO on and driving down the highway. You can definitely overheat your pump. There's a way to set these up. As you can see, there's 2 ports here where it can make it into a circular system. So we offer that as an option, and you could probably drive down the road for 15 to 20 minutes, something like that, with your pump on and not burning up if you set it up the circular way. But a majority of dump trucks on the road are not set up that way. They're just set up with the single backflow valve. So when you're raising the bed, fluid comes out. When you're lowering the bed, the fluid goes back in. So that's why I said at the beginning of the video, you need to shut your PTO off as soon as the bed is all the way up. The PTO needs to be shut off so that you don't continue spinning the pump, because these pumps can get overheated easily. So one way to tell your pump is overheated, you go under there, you look at it, and there's no more paint on the pump. So the pump will be back to bare metal. If you know all the paint's gone, you've overheated the pump is ruined, that would not be covered under warranty if your pump, all the paint is off of it. So another thing that's possible is if it's leaking, some of the internal seals in there can be bad, and that's what sometimes happens with these. Like I said, you know, maybe 1 in 20, 1 in 30 out of the box we're having a problem with, and we normally test these and try leaving the bed up overnight just to make sure it's holding pressure. Because one of the things, if you leave your bed up and the bed is slowly coming down and everything is in adjustment properly, so you have your valve in the holding position right here, it's in the holding position, and the bed is still coming down, that could mean that the seals are starting to go out inside of your pump. So if you want to leave your bed up, you know, 2 or 3 feet overnight, you come back in the morning and it's down all the way or down a little bit, you know you have a problem in your pump. That's likely an indication that the whole pump is going to stop working soon, because that's something that can happen in these pumps, and it's really not worth it to rebuild the pumps. I would suggest just getting another one. These pumps are fairly inexpensive compared to a lot of the other components on the truck, and it's fairly inexpensive compared to being stuck at a landfill and having your pump not work. So I would just get another pump and install it, and the pump can be installed reasonably quickly. You know, a lot of mechanic shops, you show up there with a bad pump, it's something they can just drop in there in a couple hours, and you won't be sitting there waiting for days to have a pump fixed. So another problem that's that can happen with these, besides leaving the pump on and burning it up. So this is something you definitely don't want to do. If you can see at the back of these pumps, there's another hole here where you can hook a cable to that actually shuts off the this right here shuts off the pump. So this is, as you can see, is linked to the valve. So this is a safety cable that basically, when the cylinder, you want to set that up so that before the cylinder reaches complete extension, that the cable is shutting the pump off so it doesn't continue to pump. Because what can happen is, you know, it takes a certain amount of pressure to raise your dump bed when it's loaded. So once the cylinder reaches full extension, it's going to continue pumping till it's at maximum pressure, and over time that can blow the seals out on your cylinder. It can, you know, blow a hydraulic line. It can ruin the pump, and worst case scenario here, it can snap the drive shaft off here. So let's say you're giving it full throttle, which really you shouldn't go above 1500 RPMs when raising your dump body. You know, you can give it some gas to raise it up a little quicker, but you don't want to start flooring it. But let's say somebody's flooring it and you don't have the cable hooked up, or you don't have the cable in adjustment, and the cylinder tops out, cylinder reaches full extension, and kabam, the drive shaft snaps right here. Then when the drive shaft snapped, it breaks off inside the PTO. There's a little plug right here, a little plastic plug, but with that plug out, the drive shaft goes right in there. So if you don't have that adjusted properly and you're sitting there throttling up the truck, cylinder gets the full extension, snaps that. Now you need a new PTO and a new pump. I mean, you might be able to somehow extract the drive shaft out of there, but that is not going to be an easy task typically. And these PTOs are about twice as much as a pump. So you definitely don't want to do that. So keep that in mind when you're raising your bed, just as well as not wanting to tip the truck over. You want to just raise the bed the minimal amount to dump the load, but you definitely don't want to go full throttle and let your cylinder top out. That can cause serious damage to both the pump and the PTO. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the trucks right now, and leave a comment below if there's some things you think in this video I didn't cover. Maybe we could do a part 2. Also, if you're looking at other, want me to do some other troubleshooting videos, we do have a bunch more of these planned. We're going to go ahead and do those, but if you also have some ideas for that, there's some videos you'd like to see on troubleshooting, go ahead and let me know below. But I'll go ahead and jump onto the trucks here and show you what that looks like. Right, here we are under the truck, looking at the PTO system right there, and the pump with the mechanical controls on it. So as you can see on these mechanical controls, there are some bolts that can come loose here and possibly cause you some problems. There's another little cotter pin right on top right there. If that falls out, pin drops out, you're gonna have some problems as well. So coming under here, making sure all this stuff is connected and that you're getting full range of motion when the cable is going in and out. So there's bed down, holding position, and bed up. So right there, you come around to the back, you can see the safety cable right there is connected, and that is going to stop your cylinder from fully extended. So that's actually connected to the dump body and in adjustment so that it stops the cylinder about a foot from being fully extended. So once it starts to get fully extended, it pulls this out and shuts the pump off so that you don't risk over pressurizing the system. Here we have a pump with the air controller on the front, as you can see there. So we got the quick disconnect lines. Again, something like this comes, pops off, just needs to be pushed back on. That can definitely happen. You can see it's the lowest part here, almost on the truck. So the steps just an inch lower. So you definitely got to be careful, but still on this particular Pete 388, we're a decent ways off the ground. I would say a little over 18 inches, probably 20 inches off the ground. So you'd have to do some serious off-roading to be in danger of hitting that. But this is the difference here with the air controller, and I'll go ahead and jump in the cab and show you the controller stick that we did on this one. But there's a bunch of different control stick options with the air controls, as well as some other safety features available. That's the air controls with our mechanical control package. We got a bunch of different control options. So you can see some of our other videos on that and visit our website. Leave a comment below if there's some things you think in this video I didn't cover. Maybe we could do a part 2. Also, if you're looking at other want me to do some other troubleshooting videos, we do have a bunch more of these planned. We're going to go ahead and do those, but if you also have some ideas for that, there's some videos you'd like to see on troubleshooting, go ahead and let me know below. This is Shay with Truxas Sales. Thank you for viewing. Please visit our website at www.truxassales for more information. Thank you.